Hello and welcome to Berlin in 2020 during the worldwide lockdown. That means you're probably not able to come to Berlin right now, but I want to give you a chance to see how the city looks like now in 2020. Some of the recent changes I want to show to you. I took the bus number 100. I entered it here at Herzallee stop, which is just one stop prior to the zoo station. So all the bus lines departing from the zoo station have their first stop here. And that's a good chance to get the front row seat upstairs. As we turn around the corner to the zoo station, you saw the Lion's Gate to the zoo, one of the two main entrances to Berlin's oldest zoo. That's the most popular entrance because it's just across the road from the train station. But if you want to enter the zoo on a busy day, I would recommend to you to take the Elephant's Gate, just one more bus stop from here. So there's normally a much shorter line. You can also walk there. It's about a 10-minute, maybe 15-minute walk to the other side of the zoo. This is the bus stop of bus number 100 and 200, which most people have in mind if they arrive here at the zoo station. They take the bus from here, but it's often quite occupied already. So that's why my recommendation is to just walk towards the buses until the stop I just showed to you. The zoo already opened in 1844. That makes it the oldest zoo in Germany, and it holds a world record. It's the world's most diverse zoo with 1,500 different species. No other zoo in the world is even close to that number. And we're at the zoo station, which opened for the 1936 Summer Olympics, which took place here in Berlin during the Nazi era. And that's when they made this train station much bigger. It's not just a local, it's also a regional train station. During the German separation, it became more important because it had the function of the main station of West Berlin, where trains from Western Germany arrived. And that's not the case anymore today. Today it's back to a local and regional train station because all national and international trains depart now from the new central station, but it's just a 5-minute S-Bahn ride from here, so it's not so far. In front of this station you see that little curry sausage stand, Curry 36. It's one of Berlin's most famous curry sausage stands, currywurst stands. The original store is in Kreuzberg at Mehringdamm station, but for a couple of years now they have two branches, one here at the zoo station, the other one in the central station. And this area changed quite a bit during the past years. Most of the buildings you see right now here are brand new. They were built within the last 10 years. Like this Waldorf Astoria here, that's one of the city's most luxurious hotels. So with a big suite for 12 or 15,000 euros a night. And we're now approaching Breitscheidplatz. That's the square where that horrific terror attack took place in 2016 when a truck driver crashed into their Christmas market here. In the middle of the square you saw the Memorial Church, which was built in honor to Emperor William I under his grandson William II. This is the Europa Center. That's Berlin's oldest shopping center, the first American-style shopping center in the city. By now, Berlin has about 65, 70 shopping malls, so actually way too many. But this was the first one. On the other side of the road, there's another shopping center, the Bikini Berlin, which is worth a visit, but not just because of the stores. They're not so special, but on top of the shopping center you have a public roof terrace with a great view into the zoo, and also inside the shopping center they have some windows, so you can also see the zoo on the other side of the station. Next to that shopping center, also just across the road here at that traffic light, there's the 25 Hours Hotel with a famous rooftop bar on top of the Monkey Bar, because you have a great view into the monkey cage of the zoo. And here we approach the Elephant's Gate to the zoo. That's the other entrance, and the zoo aquarium. So the aquarium is a bad weather alternative if it's a rainy day and your kids want to see some animals, then you can still go to the zoo, but go to the aquarium instead. And if you turn right here on this junction, you'll end up at the KaDeWe, the biggest department store in continental Europe. You can also take this street, will also take you there. We're now in normal residential neighborhood, so I can tell you a bit more about this bus line, number 100. It was introduced just after the reunification as first east-west line that was introduced after Berlin was back in one piece. Shortly after, the 200 bus line was introduced, which goes on a similar route, but here it takes the next parallel street to the left, and then the two lines will meet at the second next bus stop, and then the bus number 200 will take a route further south. And we're now passing by some hotels like the Sylterhof, and that's also part of the political center of Berlin. To the right there's the headquarters of the Alternative for Germany, the AfD party, so they have the headquarters here. And then you move on just across the bridge, you will see the headquarters of the Christian Democrats. Here's the Hotel Berlin. That's one of the city's largest hotels. It takes the entire street block here, so it has almost 1,000 rooms. That makes it one of the largest hotels of the city. Not the largest one, but one of the biggest hotels in the city. This square is called Alexanderplatz. It's where you should get off that bus if you want to see Berlin's LBGT quarter. So the lesbian and gay community has many shops and bars and clubs here in this area. There's even the gay museum just on Lützowstraße. So that's the area for the Berlin gay community, which starts here. But we're now crossing the Landwehrkanal. On the left you see the headquarters of the CDU, the Christian Democrats, and on the right there's a construction site. That's the construction site of the Bauhaus Archiv, Bauhaus Museum. Bauhaus is the style of architecture of the 1920s here in Germany and Europe, and this museum informs you about that period of design and architecture. The other buildings here in this road are mainly embassies. Here's the Mexican one, and just behind the Nordic embassies. Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland and Iceland share this ground. It looks like one building, but it's not. There are 5 buildings. They're only connected by that green-blue facade. And even here to the right down Tiergartenstraße towards Potsdamer Platz, you'll find plenty more embassies. As soon as we cross the road, you'll see the Saudi Arabian embassy. But you should get off the bus here if you want to take a nice walk through the garden. There's a little lake and a boat rental to the left. There's also one of the city's nicest beer gardens there, the Café am Neuen See. But if you prefer to go for a walk, then you should enter the garden here on the right side of the road, because that's the biggest section of the garden. There are some waterways and some nice paths to walk along, some lawns. So that's the nicest part of the garden, so you should definitely have a look. It's one of the largest city gardens in Europe. It stretches out for more than 3 kilometers from east to west and about 1.5 from north to south. So you see some people exercising here, so it's quite a popular park, but it's not super busy, not because it's the lockdown period. No, the main reason why it's never too busy in this garden is that it's not surrounded by major residential areas, so people have to come here to enjoy the garden, and most locals prefer to go to the gardens which are closer by to where they live. We're now approaching the Victory Column, the Siegessäule, which was erected in the 1870s as a symbol for the Prussian victories over Austria, Denmark and France, all in the late 19th century. But the column was not erected here. It was first built in front of the Reichstag, even before the Reichstag itself was built. And then it was moved here during the Nazi era because Hitler had big plans for Berlin. He wanted to conquer the world and make Berlin the capital of the world, and so he needed space next to the Reichstag, relocated the column and added a 4th drum, so it's now taller than it used to be. There's some memorials here on the left side. These Moltke and Roon, which were Prussian generals leading the armies in the war the Victory column stands for. Yeah, so this is where you should get off if you want to get up the column, but you cannot simply cross the road on a traffic light to get to the column. You have to take the tunnel. There was these little houses on the junction before, and that's where you can go down, go into the tunnel, and go up on the other side. And to climb the column, it's not so expensive. It's 3 or 4 euros, so it's comparably cheap. And then you see big fences here on the left side of the road, because that's the Schloss Bellevue, the Bellevue Palace. That's the office of a German president. Many international visitors do not even know that we have a president, because everyone knows Angela Merkel, our chancellor. She's head of government, but our president, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, is head of state, so that's he's basically ceremonial, like the Queen of England. So he's shaking hands with other presidents, but officially he's the number one in the country, while Angela Merkel, as head of government, is only the third in the official order. The parliament's president is number 2. So the federal president number 1, parliament's president number 2, and the chancellor then number 3. And here this bridge takes you to the other side of the river Spree, the main river through Berlin city center. It flows into the Havel, and the Havel then outside of Berlin into the Elbe, and the Elbe into the North Sea. So you can take your paddle boat here and paddle over to England or Scotland or wherever you want to go. The bus follows the shore of the river now, so if you walk along here, it's much nicer because you can get closer to the river. The bus right here is also quite relaxing because it's following the garden. Actually, in this part of the garden, until not so long ago, it was allowed to have your private barbecue, but because people did not clean up after barbecuing, the city decided to prohibit that. So no barbecuing anymore in the Tiergarten Park. So if you bring your picnic basket, that's still okay, but no open fires. Yeah, so here that's the path taking you down to the river, so you can go closer, and you can also take a boat cruise there. So that's maybe also an option for you. Now we are approaching the Haus der Kulturen, der Welt, House of the Cultures of the World, a congress center paid for by the US, part of the Marshall Plan in the 50s, when it was time to reconstruct war-destroyed West Berlin. It's often nicknamed Pregnant Oyster because of its shape. Unfortunately, the roof once collapsed and a reporter was killed, and so it had to be rebuilt in the 80s. Next to it, you'll find that black tower, which is a carillon, an instrument. It's one of the world's largest instruments, actually. It's a bell tower, and it's played live once a week, at least during summer. I think it's on Sundays. There's a little information board down here, which gives you the exact concert schedule, so you should check that out. Otherwise, twice a day there's a computer-generated play. So once I think at 11 and once in the afternoon at, I'm not sure, 1 or 3 p.m. Yeah, we're in the government quarter now. To the left you'll find Angela Merkel's office, the Chancellor's office, the Federal Chancellery, where it's actually one of the world's largest buildings for head of government. It used to be the largest building, but Erdogan, Turkish president, built a bigger one in Ankara, so he is now the biggest government headquarters in the world. But there's another government building there. That's the Paul-Löbe-Haus. That's where the members of the parliament have their offices in. And here in that part of the garden, you'll find a big memorial. That's the Soviet Memorial and a Soviet War Cemetery. That's one of the 3 memorials to the fallen soldiers of the Red Army during World War II. Now we're approaching the Reichstag building, the German parliament. So where all our laws are made. So you can go up there. There's an information center here on the right side of the road where you have to register, because you can only go in after registration and only after this lockdown is over. And if you have your registration, you can go up there and see how our politicians work, or how they should work. So that's Also quite good, and you have a nice view from up there because Berlin is quite flat. You do not have to climb too far up to have a great view over the city. The admission is free, but you have to register at this information center. And if you get off here, it's not only to get off to go to the Reichstag. Here you see on the sign, it's only 200 meters here to the right to the Brandenburg Gate. So Reichstag and Brandenburg Gate are super close to each other. So get off here, not at the next stop for the Brandenburg Gate. So, and as we cross the road, there you will see a line, a cobblestone line on the road, which marks the trail of the Berlin Wall. Because the Reichstag was the last building on the western side. The Brandenburg Gate was the first building on the eastern side. So here's where bus number 100 crosses the former borderline and where we're entering East Berlin. There's also a little memorial here on the corner. There are some white crosses for some of the people who were shot by East German border guards. And so, yeah, today it's a simple junction, but it's quite a historical place. That's only the reason why the building here on the corner is the only old one. Until the Brandenburg Gate, then there was nothing. The gate survived, and the building here on the corner, but it was walled in, so it was not accessible by the public. And the bus does not go through the gate. It did so in the 90s, so just after the reunification. You could stay on the bus and go through the Brandenburg Gate, but that's not possible anymore because of all the tourists around the Brandenburg Gate. So if you want to go through the gate, you can only do that by walking or by cycling. So if you take your bike or rent a bike or hire a rickshaw, that's your chance to go through the Brandenburg Gate. Yeah, the bus takes this route here in the parallel street, passes by these buildings which host more offices of the parliamentarians. So it's a part of the political center of the city. And further on that street takes you to Friedrichstraße, the main shopping street. And if you turn left, you'll reach the river again, the River Spree. There's some bars and restaurants on the river, which is also quite nice to sit down there and take a little break. And if you go further to the left, you'll reach the Charité, the biggest hospital in Germany. And there's also a TV studio by German television. But the bus turns right now, so it will go closer to the Brandenburg Gate. So it will stop at the Brandenburg Gate station. So actually you can hop off at the stop before, go through, walk through the gate, and get back on the bus at the next stop. Yeah, we are passing by the French embassy here on the right side of the road. Directly on the square it has another bigger entrance, but since the Paris terror attacks, it also has security surveillance. Straight on you'll find the British Embassy and Hotel Adlon, with Germany's most luxurious, most expensive hotel room. The biggest suite in the Hotel Adlon costs 20,000 euros a night. It's the Royal Suite. It used to be called Presidential Suite until Queen Elizabeth of England announced that she'll be coming to Berlin and she's going to stay in the Adlon. And the manager of the Adlon decided that they cannot put a queen into a presidential suite, and so they decided to rebrand that presidential suite into a royal suite. And so the queen stayed in the royal suite, and all other presidents now also have to stay in royal suites. Yeah, that's also the hotel Michael Jackson dangled his baby out of the window. That's a worldwide picture. And now you have the view onto the Brandenburg Gate. Left of the Brandenburg Gate you'll find the American Embassy. Yeah, the bus turns around now, and on the other side of the road you'll find Berlin's Madame Tussauds and the construction site for the future Polish embassy. So Poland used to have an embassy here, but it was during the communist era and it was pretty run down, and so Poland decided to have a new one. And here on the right side of the road we have the biggest embassy in all of Europe, the Embassy of Russia, which was built in the 50s as Embassy of the Soviet Union. Here in East Berlin, in the former Soviet sector, and so they had to show who the boss is in this part of the city, or even the world. Yeah, and here we have the Komische Oper, Opera Comique, one of Berlin's 3 opera houses. It looks quite simply or maybe even ugly on the outside, so you might not expect that this is an opera, but the surroundings and the entrance hall were destroyed during the war, but not the main hall and the stage. So on the inside it's still an historical building of the former Metropole Theater, which used to be on the same location, and it was transferred into the Komische Oper after World War II. On the left, or in the middle of the road, you see a construction site. That's the construction site for the extension of the U5 underground line. So in late 2020, maybe early 2021, it will be possible to take the U5 from Alexanderplatz along Unter den Linden to the Brandenburg Gate and straight on to the central station. Yeah, the U5 and U6 lines are going to meet here. Yeah, and it's just underneath Friedrichstraße, which is the next street. Friedrichstraße is the main shopping street here in the Eastern Center. If you walk down to the right, you will be reaching Checkpoint Charlie after 25 minutes. So the former border crossing, and if you walk to the left, there's also another former border crossing, the Friedrichstraße train station. This is the Automobile Forum by VW Volkswagen Drive, where Volkswagen presents all their brands. On the left we have the biggest historical building in Berlin, the State Library Staatsbibliothek, and in the middle of the road there's a memorial for Prussian King Frederick the Great, Friedrich der Große, who gave the order for the construction of this entire square we are approaching now. It's called Bebelplatz. The building here on the left is Humboldt University. It was originally built as palace for Frederick's younger brother, Prince Henry. Then we have the Staatsoper, State Opera, and in the corner St. Hedwig's Cathedral, Berlin's oldest Catholic church. And here on the right, the former Royal Library before it moved to the other side of the road, which I showed you before. On the left, that's the Neue Wache, the new guardhouse when the street was full of royal palaces. Royals needed guards. So here, for example, the Crown Prince lived in the building next to it, the princesses. So they needed protection. And this one is the Museum for German History. So if you want more details on everything I could only mention for a couple of seconds here, you should go into this building. Yeah, here we have the construction site for the reconstruction of Berlin's palace, the former royal residence. It was supposed to be finished by late 2020, but because of the corona pandemic it was pushed back and will open sometime next year. Here on the left we have the Museum Island. You see the Altes Museum and the Berliner Dom, Berlin Cathedral, the city's biggest church. It's about 100 years old because the Emperor William II did not like the old dome on the same location. He wanted a bigger one for his big German empire and gave the order to tear it down and replace it with this big one. Here through this little park you'll reach the Nikolai Quarter, which is the area where Berlin's old town was. It was reconstructed during the communist era. Only a handful of buildings survived. Here's the main construction site for the new metro line, and a little memorial for Karl Marx and his friend Friedrich Engels was also here. Here we have the St. Mary's Church, Marienkirche. That's the city's oldest active church. We have one church which is older, St. Nikolai, in the Nikolai Quarter, but St. Nikolai is only used as a museum today, and that makes St. Mary's the city's oldest active church. Over there we have the Berlin City Hall, also called the Red City Hall, from the 1860s. It became too small pretty fast, and that's why the building behind it was built as an extension. Here we have Martin Luther, because St. Mary's, as most churches in Berlin, is Protestant. The whole north of Germany, the former Kingdom of Prussia, was Protestant, and so most churches here are Protestant. That's a nice view with the TV tower in the background. Yeah, the church is from around 1300. It's open to the public, you can just go in. And the TV tower is the tallest tower in all of Germany. You can go up there It's open from 10 a.m. or 9 in summer, and opens until midnight. And you can buy your tickets online, but then they cost more because they only sell their premium tickets online. So if you just show up there and buy your ticket there, it's normally cheaper, but then you might have to wait 2, 3, 4 hours depending on how busy the city is. But you do not have to wait in line the entire time. So you can buy your ticket and you get a number on your ticket, and they will send you a text message when it's your turn, and then you have 15 minutes to come back. So you can calculate that quite exactly. So if you know it's our time in about 2 hours, so then you just go back to the area, maybe grab a coffee, and then you can go up the tower. So we're now reaching Alexanderplatz station, which is also the edge of the oldest part of the city in the 17th century, where now the rail bridge is. Berlin was already over. The old city fortification was then filled, and that rail track was built in the late 19th century. That's where our journey is going to end, here in front of the Galeria Kaufhof department store. That's the main department store here in the eastern center. In the western center it's the KaDeWe, but here in the east it's this Galeria Kaufhof store. Yeah, the bus has its final stop here, so if you want to see more of the city, you could now cross the road and take the return trip on bus number 200 on a different road, or you take the tram here and go further north into Prenzlauer Berg, also quite a nice neighborhood.